So there was a time in history where Nigerians sold their own people to the white man. I mean, if you know more of the history, you'll know the Yoruba tribe, really the one that's in power, worked with the white man and sold the Igbos and everybody else. And they're still in power over to this country. And during that time, you had a lot of structure as far as the familial structure in those communities. The men had a defined role, the woman had a defined role, and it was, as you know, to be patriarchal. It's still the same way. The man is the head of the household. So they came over to this country and they were enslaved. They lost their language, they lost their culture, they lost their tongue, they lost their self-respect, they lost their traditions. But the benefit of that were the exposure of the truth. This is where a lot of Africans may have a problem with what I'm about to say. The exposure of the truth of the ultimate truth, which is the Bible. You know, during slavery, of course, the white man took out the exodus of Moses, because if you kept Moses there, which was an enslaved people, that might empower slaves to do the same. So they did give slaves a watered down version of the Bible. But that word was enough to build a people. So the black man in America became gospel-centered, became focused on the word. And that gospel eventually took him to the White House. You know, when I say they took him to the White House, it took him to Martin Luther King, fighting for freedoms with other allies, white allies that helped them. And then it took him to eventually being the most powerful man on the planet with Obama, right? So the gospel is true, and the gospel is not a white gospel. It's not the Romans gospel. It's not even Roman Catholic gospel. It's a gospel of a colored man, of a colored people. It has nothing to do with the white man, but that's a different post, but you guys need to do your own research. So now you have this black man in office, right? So this black man in office, everyone kind of the country came together because they actually believed the country as a whole United States as a whole came together as a place where Christian values were set. They left Europe, they wanted independence, and they said, all men is going to be created equal, and we believe in the Bible in this country, right? And that's the core of our nation, right? So we got Obama in office, and we believe, okay, you know, this man has a good family, he looked like he has Christian values, and on his first term, he did fairly well, and then he got into his second term. The second term is where things changed. There was a moment where he lit up the White House with rainbow colors, signifying a law that he passed, standing with the LGBTQ and making it into mainstream. Whereas before that point, it was a completely different nation. That's when it began it all. You know, prior to that, of course, Ellen DeGeneres had a show and she groomed the whole nation to accept this alternate lifestyle, accept me for who I am, this is me, you know. But Ellen DeGeneres lay the groundwork, but Obama took it to the next place. And then after that, the whole country started becoming degenerate in a certain way. And you had all these people talking about, instead of accept me for who I am, is accept me for who I am, and I'm going to redefine who you are. And then Obama and his allies just left, still started going down that direction, and it wasn't the core of who we are as a nation. And I think they have lost their way in who America was. And so we're here today. We are here today because the feminist movement, the goofy, gender confusing, lying, manipulative, trying to take down just masculinity all itself, talking about taking down the patriarchy, is why we are here today. That whole agenda is wicked. It's not of God. But this is the thing about it. We are at a place where it's a new day, right? And we are all watching. And if you are a true believer, you're going to stick with the word. So even in this time, if we have the current administration doing goofy or focusing on goofy or saluting Nazi symbols and standing by it and not repudiating it, but instead going to conferences and giving them more confidence on who they truly are, it doesn't end here. Christ, the whole journey up to now is a story of God. You know, how God has revealed himself to greater, has revealed himself to people, to the nation, has grown our nation to be the greatest nation. But that's all God. It's a God story. So if we don't repudiate wickedness, we are going to be on the wrong side. And God will prevail. So when we see wickedness, regardless of it's left or right, if we see things that are outside of the word, we stick with the word. We stay independent with the word. Today, I support this administration. I support, we need a turn in our economy, in our culture. We need a turn in our thinking. But tomorrow, if this administration or anyone in power is doing stuff that are outside of God's word or outside of God's order, they don't get support. So it is nuanced. We need to focus on what the words say always. It's only because of the word we are here.